Welcome back to our channel. We recently received the following story from a married couple in South Africa. Hi, inspired by the chilling tale of the Balinese sea demon featured on your channel, I felt a pressing need to share the extraordinary experience that Marlise, my fiancée at the time, our fox terrier Joey and I had on a secluded beach in South Africa during the 1980s. This adventure, far removed from the era of instant digital communication, unfolded in a time when the mysterious still held sway over remote places. Our destination was a pristine stretch of beach along the South African south coast, known only to a few locals. This beach, hemmed in by imposing sand dunes and miles of wild bush belonging to a nature reserve, promised the perfect escape from the bustle of everyday life. The first few days were idyllic, filled with the simple pleasures of camping, cooking over an open fire, fishing along the shoreline, and the comforting sound of waves breaking on the shore. However, our sense of peace was disrupted one afternoon when we noticed something highly unusual, a strange, cigar-shaped object hovering distantly over the ocean. It was unlike any aircraft we were familiar with, and it lingered there for hours, filling us with an uneasy sense of intrigue. It defied any conventional explanation, appearing too stable and solid to be a mirage, yet its distance was impossible to gauge. We speculated whether it could be a spacecraft from another world, but just as we were trying to make sense of it, the object vanished as if it had never been there. That evening, our sense of unease intensified. Unusual lights, which some nowadays might call orbs, appeared near our tent on the dunes, moving in inexplicable patterns. Their origin and nature were beyond our understanding, and their proximity sparked a growing concern within us. Thankfully, they kept their distance. Joey, our usually vocal fox terrier, responded not with barks, but with a silent, fixated gaze, an atypical behavior that only heightened the strangeness of the moment. Marlise clung tightly to my arm, her grip a mix of fear and fascination. Together, we watched, unable to tear our eyes away from the mesmerizing display. The lights pulsed and shifted, casting an ethereal glow around our campsite, before they disappeared into the night's embrace. Isolated as we were, with our campsite a considerable distance from the car and enveloped in darkness, I suggested to Marlise that we should consider leaving at first light. The strangeness of our experience had escalated beyond a comfortable threshold, and I felt a pressing responsibility for our safety. The morning unfolded with a picturesque haze blanketing the beach, the air fresh and tinged with the vibrant scent of the sea. The waves lapped gently at the shore, a serene backdrop to our simple ritual of enjoying a steaming cup of coffee paired with rusks, a timeless South African tradition. In that tranquil moment, the stunning beauty of the south coast was truly awe-inspiring, promising a perfect day for fishing. Regardless of the events of the previous day, Marlise and I decided to stay until the afternoon. However, as I savoured the last sips of my coffee, the peculiarity of the previous night revisited us. In the distance, two figures could be seen making their way along the beach toward our spot. Initially, they appeared to be just fellow beachgoers, perhaps out for a morning stroll. Their pace was unhurried, almost leisurely at times. Yet, as they drew nearer, their movement slowed further, revealing an eeriness to their approach. It was then that the oddity of their appearance truly struck me, sending a shiver down my spine. Their slender bodies, about my height, were entirely grey, their colour almost merging with the misty backdrop of the coast. Their skin, or perhaps it was some form of tightly fitting attire, was adorned with green, organic-like patterns that subtly shifted as they moved. Their large, featureless eyes added to their alien appearance, making it impossible to discern any gender. They eventually stopped about 200 metres away from us, close enough for us to realise their oddity, yet too far to discern any finer details. The most disconcerting aspect of these figures were those large, expressionless eyes, which seemed to be fixed on us. As mentioned before, this was a highly secluded beach rarely visited by people, so at that moment we felt utterly alone with whatever these beings were. I had already resolved to pack up and leave even before they got too close, but Marlise, pointing towards them, drew my attention to something peculiar. Joey, too, had noticed the figures and was intently observing them. Yet, in a departure from her usual behavior, she remained silent, her gaze fixed on them but without any sign of agitation. Marlise, who was studying anthropology at university in those days, found her initial apprehension giving way to a deepening intrigue in these otherworldly people. I kept a watchful eye on the figures as I hurriedly gathered our fishing equipment. One of them had now seated itself on the sand, gazing out at the sea, while the other appeared to be observing the seagulls flying overhead. I wondered if they were merely pretending not to be too interested in us. With Joey calm and Marlise's interest piqued, and the two beings seemingly absorbed in surroundings, I reconsidered our hasty departure. Though very strange, there was an unusual sense of calm in the air. At times, it felt like a palpable energy that was emitted by them and amplified by the sereneness of the natural environment itself. Then I thought, why waste a beautiful day for fishing? In any case, my own curiosity was beginning to outweigh my initial unease. Marlise tried to capture this extraordinary encounter with her camera. However, each time she aimed at the figures, they would vanish from the frame, only to materialize again as soon as she lowered the camera. It was a baffling phenomenon that added to the surreal nature of our experience. In an effort to alleviate our lingering apprehension and restore some semblance of normality, Marlise suggested we continue fishing. To our surprise, the figures kept their distance, occasionally glancing our way with what seemed like a dispassionate curiosity. This strange impasse enveloped us in an almost otherworldly sense of peace, leaving us to wonder if we were witnessing visitors from another realm, their purpose as mystifying as their presence. Then, the atmosphere took a sudden, alarming turn. Joey abruptly rose and dashed towards the water's edge, barking and growling with an intensity I'd never seen in her before. Her focus was fixed on the waves. Our otherworldly visitors, who had since moved further away and were seated at a distance, sprang to their feet, their attention drawn to the same spot that had captivated Joey. What followed was a scene straight out of a nightmare. A grotesque creature, reminiscent of the Balinese sea demon from your video, emerged from the waves. It was a massive entity, the size of a small trailer, and it bore a terrifying resemblance to a gigantic crustacean or arachnid. With menacing pincers akin to those of a crab or scorpion, it charged out of the water, heading straight for Joey. The creature moved with a disturbing agility, its intent clear and frightening. As we prepared to rush forward in a desperate attempt to save our dog, I noticed that our strange visitors were now much closer, about 50 meters away. One of them raised an arm, and from his palm, a violet light shot out, striking the creature. The beast recoiled as if electrocuted, emitted an unearthly sound, and hastily retreated back into the sea. Our greenish-grey visitors sprang into action without a moment's delay. Pursuing the creature, they waded into the water until they were knee-deep, and that's when something extraordinary happened. A bizarre blue energy bubble formed around them, similar in design to the larger structure we had observed above the sea the previous day, albeit much smaller. They positioned themselves inside the bubble, which then transitioned from being translucent to a solid silver color. This structure seemingly was a craft of some sort. For a moment, it moved like a boat tracing the path taken by the crab-like creature. Before our eyes, it dove beneath the waves, disappearing just as abruptly and mysteriously as the creature it had pursued. We stood there, frozen, trying to comprehend the surreal and terrifying events that had just unfolded before us. Still reeling from shock and disbelief, we quickly grabbed Joey and began to pack our belongings with a sense of urgency. The need to distance ourselves from that beach and the enigmatic events that unfolded was overwhelming. The entire drive home was engulfed in a heavy silence, with each of us immersed in our own thoughts, attempting to process the surreal experiences we had just endured. That encounter has etched itself indelibly into our memories, constantly challenging our perception of the world as we know it. In the aftermath, we often speculated about the intentions of our two mysterious visitors. It seemed they were waiting for the appearance of that crab spider-like creature. Were they there to protect us? Or were we unwittingly used as bait in some strange cosmic game? The true motive behind their actions remained an enigma. All these years we've been haunted by so many questions. Who were the green-grey beings? Where did they come from? What was their purpose? And the creature that emerged from the sea, it was something out of a horror tale. What was it? We were grateful that it never crossed our paths again. That is until I watched your video on the Balinese sea demon, which brought back a flood of memories and a chilling sense of familiarity. It's a story we've rarely shared, but one that continues to resonate with us, a testament to the enigmatic mysteries of nature. Yours sincerely, John. Thank you for watching this episode, and please tell us in the comments below what you think the answers are to John's questions. If you enjoyed this intriguing story, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to ring the bell for more captivating stories like this one. Your engagement helps us uncover more mysteries waiting to be told.